Thinking about giving your home a fresh new look? Before you pick up that phone, join us for a sit down with a seasoned professional painter to uncover the secrets you must know before hiring. From insider tips choosing the right pro, protecting yourself from injuries on your property, and exploring paint technology, this interview will help you paint smarter, safer, and more beautifully than before. Hi, Tana Vi here. I have our guest from Kranenburg Painting. He's the actual owner. Cliff, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you.
Welcome. Kind of give you an introduction to us. Tell us how you got into the painting industry in the first place.
I lived in Miami and I was working with a contractor and a painting contractor. And I was going back and forth and I just saw the quality of work wasn't there and the professionalism wasn't there. And I wanted to do better and I knew I could make a better profit. And another bigger reason I wanted to have a company is to be able to employ people to feed their families. So that's the big reason why I started my own company.
Any different particular techniques that you found that you ended up actually expounding on once you got started in the industry?
Yeah, using the proper prep and proper techniques to execute, the painting correctly, and being a member of the PDCA, which is the PDA right now. It's the Painting Association of America. So I am a member of them, and we go by their guidelines and their professionalism, which not too many painters even know what that is, which makes a big difference in our industry. It's really quality control is what it is.
Sounds like a much higher quality that you guys have to obtain to stay in there.
Yes, correct.
Okay.
Yes.
So, as speaking of those guidelines, do you see certain problems that come up with, let's say, painters that don't use those guidelines that you guys really train your team to make sure that doesn't happen?
Yeah, it's all in the prep. That's the key. It's like anything else, really. It's all in the prep. And if you're prepared for something, then it's going to work out real well. If you're not, then it's typically going to fail. And if you're not using the right adherents, the right sealers and primers, that's another reason it's going to fail. We tape everything off. We protect the floors. We cover everything. And the guys I have working for me, 99% of the time, I don't have to go back and check. They're true professionals, and they do it right the first time.
We see that a lot in our state where a lot of our subcontractors have subpar work. So it's really nice to hear that you guys have that kind of quality control.
Yeah, it is. It is great. I mean, we've done a lot of big jobs to where we know that it comes out right. We just finished the Chamber of Commerce in Venice,
Oh, wow.
and we did the Board of Realtors in Venice. We did their interior and exterior, and the Chamber of Commerce their interior and exterior.
But this is commercial. So you do commercial and residential alike.
Correct.
And
Correct.
you've done a few of my clients' houses, and one of the things that they were always very impressed with is that you offer warranties on your work.
Yes, that's correct. We offer a 7-year warranty, which is kind of unheard of. But we take a lot of pride in our work, and even with the hurricanes that hit, you could go to the houses that we painted, and the paint is still sound. As where if you didn't put the right adhesion on, the right millage of paint, and you don't back it up, then it's gonna fail. Over time, or even within a year, it'll get efflorescence behind it and get chalky, and that's how you know that your paint is failing. And we go above and beyond. We want to make sure that every customer is like family to us.
So, for us non-painters, explain that to us, the Everenses.
Oh, what that is I'm a layman still, even though I've been doing this for 30 years. But so to explain that to you is going to be very hard. And the best way I can explain it is if you take your hand if you haven't had the paint job in a while on the exterior of your home, and you take your hand on the wall and you look and you have white chalkiness on your hand, that's what that is.
I know that when I'm taking clients to houses, that's one of the testing that we do is to see if the paint is going to be needing to be redone shortly. And then we know, like, is the waterproofing's not there. A lot of my clients don't understand that you have to repaint that exterior certain time frames to keep that waterproofing. Can you tell me why that's important?
That's hugely important. And then even with these newer homes that they build them so quickly that they don't give the stucco time to cure. And stucco really needs the pH in the stucco is very high when it's just put on. And if it's not cured and it doesn't cure for at least 7 to 21 days, 21 days are ideal, but it's just not going to happen in our day and age. But if it was 21 days, then that's why you see the cracking on the outside of these new homes that are only 6, 5 years old, and you see the chalkiness because they're using inferior paint, and they also unfortunately water the paint down to make the product go farther.
Oh yeah, that's kind of discouraging, and we definitely do see this in a lot of our stucco homes. So, you have any stories you can tell us about where your interactions with clients and some of your projects that you've done?
Yes, I can tell you that the chamber was very outdated, and it was like a almost like a peachy color. They were back in the 70s, and they had just had it painted.
When you say color, you have to talk to us non-painters. What do you mean peachy color?
Peachy, like a peach color.
Okay.
Yeah, just yeah, get the accent. But yeah, it was a really peachy color, and they were ecstatic, and the whole town was really happy about how it turned out. That it turned out real well, and we didn't know, this is an insider story, but we didn't know that we had to have a special permit to work on 41 because we had a lift to get to the high part of it, and we were on our last, like, hour of needing that lift, so by the grace of God, we got away with it, but we needed a special permit that we didn't know that you can't even really get, so I don't know how they would expect us to paint it, but they told us the code enforcement came and told us that we couldn't be there and we couldn't park our thing there. Luckily, we were done anyway. Otherwise, it would have been.
Yeah, good timing. That would have been a headache for the Chamber of Commerce and everyone that
Absolutely.
yeah, they
Absolutely.
definitely gotta pave a avenue to make that easier for the vendors to do the maintenance. Because obviously, all you
Sure.
need that maintenance.
Yeah. If you ever been to the Venice Chamber, it's just right there on 41. There's a little sidewalk, and they said we couldn't even be on the sidewalk. So I was like,
Alright,
pretty answer.
yeah, Venice, I find that Venice was very stringent with a lot of their, rules. Um,
That's why we didn't get Chick-fil-A. Yes.
yeah, I mean, like, one of the things, like, I was paint technologies, like, when I was looking up, there was a certain paint I was in the paint store, and they're explaining everything, and one of the things they were talking about was, like, are you putting it on in humidity conditions? Are you putting it like, there's all different type of technologies in these finishes. Are
Yes, correct. There
yeah,
is. Yeah. Then there's also a lot of different finishes too. But the biggest thing with Florida that's good with the Florida paints that they distribute here is they make them for Florida and for the humidity. You shouldn't really paint before it's gonna rain like 2 hours before. But with this new technology paint, and I've seen it, and I've been apprehensive, but saw it myself that it dries a lot quicker than the old oil paints. And actually, oil paint's going away. I was in California in 2008 when they did away with oil paints. They don't make oil paints there anymore. They haven't since 2000.
about California. Think I
Yeah, where California is really stringent on a lot of its codes. So, but they're doing that here too, though, where they have an oil hybrid paint that people don't realize that if a lot of times you'll see paint peeling because in the inside of a home on a door or on baseboards because they use a latex over an oil. So it's water and it's water over oil, and you really can't do that. But they have new hybrid paints now, Sherwin-Williams and Behr, that you can sand it and paint right over it, and it'll adhere very nicely. So technology has come a long way.
oh, that's great.
So instead of your nice crisp white, extra white being extra white, it's gonna have a hint of yellow to it over time, which is very unfortunate.
Oh, yeah, we want that beautiful clean look when we have it painted.
Right, but the new technology paints are amazing. They also have in China, they also have robots that paint now, and drones that pressure clean houses.
Am I gonna see some drones in your crew here soon?
That would be nice. That would be nice. At least, yeah, that would be nice. because we all know, and we have some great employees, but they're all human, so they all fall.
You wouldn't have to worry about that permit that you need for the scaffolding if you have a drug royalty. Problem solved. You guys use very high quality paint, because obviously you warranty it. It's very
Yes.
so.
Yeah, and then to be honest with the client, there's higher end paints. We use the highest end paint we have is it's called Advanced from Benjamin Moore, and that's the oil hybrid, and it's quite expensive. But the other paints we use are moderately priced, and we get better pricing, of course, than the regular consumer because we do so much volume.
Awesome.
But with that said, is the paints that we use, they have other paints that are glorified paints that they want to say last 50 years. No paint in the UV rays of Florida is going to last 50 years.
I was gonna say we have a pretty harsh climate here. We don't have
Yes,
we have con.
and all the hurricanes we've been getting as well.
Well, that's true. We can our sides of our house can get beat up with all of the winds and debris. So that makes sense.
And I wanted to just say this because I didn't mention it before when you said about the prep and all that. On the outside of a house, those cracks that I had mentioned that occur because the stucco is drying too fast, they're prominent when it's driving rains. That rain is going into your home and causing moisture and mildew in the house behind the walls that you don't even know about.
Uh, I've had a client that had mold that was seeping up behind their stucco, just like you're talking about. It was leaking
I've seen that too many times to count.
and it got into the windows, and it caused a lot of health issues in that bedroom.
Yeah, for sure, yeah.
Yeah, I think you've actually come to one of our houses that it had to have the windows repaired where we had water leaking in because of exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, and it's very common because the houses are built, as I said, very quickly here. And, unless you're getting a custom home, it's hard for that not to happen.
So you
And they don't warranty that either very long.
It makes sense. Florida is so harsh on everything. Do you have any tips for some of our watchers to how to handle some of those cracks if they're not ready to have you come out and paint for them to mitigate that?
Well, I would say don't do it yourself. The problem with doing it yourself, and look, if you're very talented, do it. Or if you've gotten instructions by a professional, do it. But otherwise, what you're doing is you're damaging your home because stucco has a texture to it. And even when we do it, you still see a hint of where you might have it done. But if I've seen it done by people that do it themselves all the time, and it's like, wow, that looks bad, man. And I can't fix it once it's on stucco unless you restucco the whole wall, and then you're gonna pay a fortune.
Okay, so
So yeah, my best advice is it's elastomeric patch, and you use that elastomeric patch on those cracks, and you use a brush and you brush it in lightly so it blends into the rest of the stucco. And then what that allows it to do is it expands and contracts with the heat. If you're up north, it's cold and heat, but really with the heat, it expands and contracts. So that crack is not going to open up again on you anytime soon.
okay.
The only thing is they only make it in white, so it can't be. So once you do that, you have an eyesore, and your HOA is going to be like, "Hey, paint your house." So it's a real challenge to just try to fix those cracks without painting.
I gotcha. And of course, the painting is going to put another sealant, water barrier, moisture barrier on your house in the first place.
Yes, and then I would highly, highly recommend they use a flat when they paint the houses because it's $1 or $2 cheaper a gallon. If you're doing 50 houses, do the math. You're saving a lot of money. So with that said is use a satin finish. A satin finish is, but it's going to make it so it's not, absorbing into the stucco, and it's going to give you a lot longer longevity. That's how I could give the 7-year warranty
Oh, gotcha.
because I know that it's gonna last and give you a lot of longevity.
I get a lot of questions about color trends when we're going through houses, and of course, everybody has different desires for paint. So then, when somebody buys a new house and wants to move in, they want to paint the whole house, and there's all different colors, and they look different, you know, f- from the magazine to when they go in the house. How do you help
Sure.
your clients with some of these color trends and how the light bounces off the colors? How do you kind of help them decide with some of these? I know this is more of an interior design, but I know you've been doing this a long time.
I do a lot of interior design stuff too as well. I give color consultations because I've taken many courses on it. So I do give color consultations. I try not to get too involved in that Because what I've honestly seen is then it's, oh, well, Cliff, you chose this color for me. No. So what I do now is I have the client sign off and say, yeah, this is the color we chose. I'll be happy to help you, but it wasn't my final choice. It was yours. But with that said is, go ahead.
I would say, like, managing those expectations where, let's say they pick a color that just really only looks like that in a really highlight, a lighted room, and they're putting it in a darker room. You kinda help go over, how the color will look in different rooms versus, what you see in a magazine.
Oh, absolutely. Yes. It's very true. If you put a dark color where you're not getting a lot of light in that room, it's gonna shrink the room. And if I'll be honest with you, if you're claustrophobic, you're gonna feel that. Believe it or not, that could be a 10 by 10 room, but visually in your mind, you just made that a 6 by 6 room by shrinking it. It's really unreal. I remember one time, my wife wanted bread on the wall, on one wall, and I was just, you don't want to do this. But a lot of people like it now, but it's a very strong color and it gets to your emotions over time. It's very interesting. That's why you see all these, like, the iPhones are white because it's supposed to be intelligence, it's supposed to be clarity. There's all these different reasons. There's a reason McDonald's is yellow, and I actually teach. I've taught a couple courses on that of why all these different colors are the way they are. But colors definitely play a role in that. And to your point is I've painted up 2 walls the same color and the light is shining in, and I've had people go to me, go right to the wall and say, Cliff, this is a different color. I'm very upset. And I have to take out the can and show them wall by wall that no, that's how color plays on light. It's very interesting.
And to expound on what you just mentioned about, how you're feeling closed in, um, the colors create such an emotional presence for you. Like, yellow's happy, red very strong, bold color, yellow's very attention grabbing. Like, there's so much wrapped up in color psychology. It's awesome to know that you're very aware of that. I've talked to painters that, you pick the color, they have no feedback. Obviously to protect themselves, that makes sense. But the fact that you have all this knowledge is very interesting, and I think a great asset to the client too.
Well, the challenge with being a if I can say this and change the subject for a second while I'm thinking about this because I'd like the people to know this. The challenge with being a painter down here or a painting contractor is one county is not reciprocal with another. So you don't need a license here, but you need a license in Port Charlotte. You don't need a license in Manatee, but in Miami, you have to have a license and take a course and everything else to be a painting contractor. In Sarasota, all I have to do is open up a LLC or an incorporation for a couple $100, and now I'm in your home. And being in your home can be very invasive. And people don't realize how important it is to have their workman's comp insurance and their insurance and someone that's been in the field for long enough to know that it's not just another guy in your home, it's a true professional, you know? I've seen this time and time again in Sarasota where it's unfortunate that a lot of our elderly get taken advantage of like that.
Yeah, it's if they don't have any requirements to get into it, obviously anybody can start this, and it's not always, that's not always a good thing. Have you had to?
Really, a lot of felons starting it and there's no regulations. It's kind of scary.
Yeah, and they're gonna be in your home around, with your family. So that's a really great, I didn't even think of that. That was a really great um part to bring up that probably doesn't cross many people's minds when they're hiring painters. They see a website, they see their LLC, they think they're good.
Right.
Yeah.
Now you want to make sure that you want to make sure that they're wearing whites for one. It shows they're a professional. And don't ask me where it came that a painter's supposed to wear whites. I heard a lot of different stories. I've even heard it comes from the KKK, believe it or not. So I don't know where it. With that said, you want to make sure that they have their company logos, are out there and things are professional. It's just like when you're hiring an electrician or anybody else. People think painting's easy, but it's really not. And then if that guy falls off the ladder in your house, that guy might just own your house. I've seen it happen.
You have. That's a So tell me, you have writing scheme. That obviously when you go out as a homeowner, that's pretty big liability because that's your biggest aspect. Well, for maybe not for others, but
No, yeah, absolutely. It is a big asset for sure. I mean, but you even heard that story where a burglar was breaking into someone's home and fell through the skylight, made it a faulty skylight, and he won that lawsuit.
wow, you have to be very
Yeah.
careful. Can you give
Yeah.
some of our some of our viewers some tips on how to interview a painting company. Like some of the questions to keep them, like the workman's comp question. Do you have you have insurance for if your workers get hurt on the job? What kind of questions would you advise them to ask when interviewing?
Well, when I send out a quote, whether it's in person or email, after I visit the client's home, I have my liability insurance and my workman's comp in the folder or as an attachment on an email. Please, if you're going to hire any painter, whoever's listening, make sure you have that. Whoever you're hiring to come into your home, make sure they have that. That's crucial. So that'd be one thing to do. Another thing is to do is check their Google reviews. That's a big key, and to get some references from established people. People, and to quite possibly you could go check on their work. That's another great way to do it. But it's a real challenge because there's a lot of painters here. There's a lot of people that call themselves painters, handymen. We even have a lot, even though the electricians and the plumbers, they have more licensing, but there's a lot here too. So there's a lot to choose from, and you get what you pay for. And the unfortunate part right now is everybody has that Walmart mentality that they think that they're going to get something for less. You're going to get what you pay for. Kranenburg Painting is not the cheapest. We're not the most expensive, but we're not the cheapest. But we pride ourselves in our work, and we pay our employees well so they could have a living wage.
And you guys do great prep work, so your paint's gonna last.
Yes, exactly. Yes. And if you ever have a problem, you call us and we're out there. I think been in business since 2004. So with all those years, I've got called back one time on a door that a guy used some kind of chemical because his dog urinated on it and it failed. And I'm like, well, I'll fix it, but this isn't really my fault. So that was the one time we've got called out. Besides that, I've never had to come back to fix anything.
Wow, that's a pretty that's a pretty great record, especially that's somebody put chemicals on it, so obviously that wasn't your fault, but you still prepared it.
Correct.
So, so another thing that probably be great for people to do when they're hiring a painter is to look at how long they've been in business. Not that it signifies how good they are, but if they've been in business for a while, obviously, you can call them back in a year. They're not going to be gone. So
That's another thing. You have so many people that you call them back and they're not there. You have a problem and now you're on your own because they're not there to answer it. So
warranty doesn't mean anything if the company's not there anymore.
exactly, yeah. I just had a friend of mine, she put windows in and the company folded and they're not there to answer her questions now.
That's a pretty big project. Windows are, they can be $45 and up. Yeah. That's a pretty big deal. So this is kind of a personal question because I'm always interested in this. I see all these different trends on ceilings, like where they take the wall paint and then you incorporate it into the ceilings, or you got the different tray ceiling. Do you see any? I've seen LEDs being put in, and I don't want to go too deep, but I just see a lot of different things being done with ceilings. Have you ran across that yet in any of your projects?
Just full finish, specialty finishes, we do specialty finishes as well. So yeah, I've seen a lot of specialty finishes done on ceilings and walls as well. But yes.
So what kind of anything particular of finish on that you can tell me about that maybe our viewers aren't aware of? I can look it up and put a picture.
Well, I can't think of the name now, but if you go to the UTC Mall, there was a store. I'd love to tell you the name of the store, but I don't remember it. But it has metallic finish on the ceiling, so it gives it a real metallic look. It's a gold metallic look. It's really beautiful.
Oh wow! Now I'm gonna have to go tomorrow. So I'm gonna have to go now and take a look. That's very interesting. Have you heard of the magnetic paint? I just saw. I was considering
Yeah,
for
but
one wall.
I haven't used it because we don't do a lot of industrial, a lot of specialty like that. But I have heard of it. Yes.
Okay, I think I'm gonna look into that. That looks very interesting. Any other tips or advice you can think of to help some? I mean, I already pulled a lot out of you, but how about this? What's one of your favorite colors that you see trending?
Interesting. It was for a while. It's Repose Gray. I even know the number of it because I've used it so much. Repose Gray from Sherwin-Williams. We painted the inside of the chamber that color and the border realtors that same color.
I've seen that one.
It's a very new.
Yeah, that one does really well in all different lights. So I've seen.
Yeah, and we just very large project for the city of Bradenton because we do a lot of work for the city of Sarasota and the city of Bradenton. And we just did a large project for the city of Bradenton. We used that same color, as a matter of fact. For Tropicana Field, they just took over a big office building. We did it like 2 months.
I see commercials very popular with sticking with the grays. I know
Well, where we live, people are more conservative.
That's
So, Sarasota, Bradenton, Sarasota for sure, I feel is more conservative. And it's the age bracket to where you're not going to see those bold colors. Now you go to Miami and I can show you pictures of what I did in Miami to where it's orange, red, pink in one room. And it looks really yeah, we draw lines through it and make it all designs, and it was pretty wild. But you see that more in the Miami flair, and out in the West Coast, I think they have it too. I've done some work out there, not extensively, but I have, and definitely in Miami, it's a big thing.
I would love for you to share one of those pictures with me if you have anything. I'll share it with our viewers. That's very interesting. Yeah, I love that. I love colors, but I'm always conservative. I want to do colors, but I never seem to be able to jump off the cliff.
Yeah, I understand. A lot of people are like that. Yeah.
This is probably the most cold color that I've used. This is a cobalt, like a cobalt blue. I forget the name of it.
Oh,
It looks purplish, but it's really you'll see a pale hues. This is the only house in my color in my house that's, like, gold, but,
okay.
yeah, I was really proud of myself, but it can't go past this it doesn't go past this room, but I love colors, so I'm like, "Oh."
You got one room, like,
Yeah, I got courage for one room.
right.
So I think some of the good takeaways for our session together is that really get referrals, make sure you have insurance, and all of the stuff that establishes the contractor you're going to hire to paint your home and who's going to be in the home with either the stuff that you have in there or your family. Um, think about safety.
And also, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but this is a key thing that I didn't mention before, is we also do financing and we also do take credit cards. So you don't have to go with the cheapest person and it's a paint job. So it can wait a little while if it has to, rather than go with the cheapest person and then suffer the consequences later on. So
Yeah, you don't want your
that's another thing.
You don't want your paint, peeling off or chalky because it wasn't prepped right because you had to go with the cheapest person.
Or paint splatters all over your rug or your outside of your house. And yeah.
I had a friend of mine hired a painter, and he didn't take the outlet covers off, he didn't take the doorknobs off, and I mean, it's just a couple screws, and I was very surprised, like, so what you're talking about, I've seen it firsthand, that not anybody that I've recommended or hired, but I've absolutely seen that happen.
Yeah, it happens too often for sure.
So I think that
Those extra steps, they take a few minutes, but they're well worth it.
Awesome. So I think that's some really great information. Yeah, so for you, when you go to, let's say, a full-size house, like a 2,000 square foot house, and you come in and you're going to paint the entire house, about how many crew do you have come in to do that paint job? Like two,
Three to
okay? And
3 to 5.
and the reason I ask is sometimes where I've had clients get paint quotes and they're like, "Oh, it's gonna take this long to paint it," because it's a one-man job, where you get multiple.
Yeah, you don't want one man in your house because a lot of times that guy could be the best painter in the world. He could probably run circles around me, but he's gonna live in your house and you are not gonna be happy. And I've seen it time and time again that happens. It's a one-man band. They call it a pot and brush because that's what pot and hook really. Because they have the hook for the pot. So but that's just something you try to avoid that. If you're painting one room and he's good, then go for it. But if you're painting your whole house, try to avoid that.
Pot and brush. So I learn something every day. That's the new slang word that I learned today, pot and brush.
Right.
And if it's a one-man show, it's quite possible that they don't have insurance.
Well, they're exempt.
Ex-
And that might not work with your insurance. It may not work with your insurance. If you are a one-man band, you could get workman's comp exemption.
Yeah, so that is
So you don't you pay $50 a year and you get workman's comp exemption here in Florida because it's a right to work state. So with that said is he doesn't have the right insurance. If he twists his ankle in your house, you may be paying for that.
very, very good information. Like, these are things that I don't think most people would ever think of when hiring.
We don't think about that. No. Okay.
Cliff, before we let you go, Give us one example of the insurance. Let's say they didn't fall, but something else can happen when you're painting that people don't think about that could be a liability to the homeowner when they hire maybe what did we call it? A pot and brush, like where they don't have the insurance. Tell me like one example that they would have to worry about.
Well, one thing is that the, a lot of us spray, and if we spray with a spray gun to get, if you're doing your soffits and fascia, that's another thing too. If you're doing your soffits and fascia, it's going to damage those cars. And if you're not insured, who's going to pay for that?
Oh, that's a pretty big deal, especially if it's more than one car.
There was a contractor, there was a story of a contractor that was doing a stadium, and there was a car lot maybe a mile down the road, and it was very windy, and they got nothing of it. Well, guess what? They fixed all those cars in that car lot to get fixed. Their insurance, they got sued through their insurance.
Wow,
A mile down the road, you carried it that far.
that's incredible. That's a pretty big deal, a car lot.
On our website, it's kranenburgpainting.com, KRANENBURG, or feel free to give me a call at 941-524-2937.
So thank you so much for doing this interview with us. We learned a lot, and I will also post his information so you can get directly to him. You guys do free quotes?
Yeah, you guys have some. We service all of Sarasota and Manatee County.
Awesome. All right, so reach out to Cliff. Great company. Many of my clients have used him. Been very happy with him. As you could tell, he doesn't get callbacks, so they prep very well. Thank you, Cliff, for joining us for the interview.
Thank you.